She was just a lost black child on the street. A decade later, she changed his life forever. The sky had just finished crying. The streets were still wet. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete, and the world moved on like it always does, fast, distracted, and unaware. Cars passed, people rushed by with their umbrellas and coffee cups. No one noticed the small figure curled up near the lamppost. No one, except one man. His name was Thomas Reed, a quiet man in his 60s, gray hair, brown coat, grocery bag in hand. He wasn't in a hurry. He rarely was these days. Ever since he lost his wife and daughter in a car accident 7 years ago, time had moved differently for him, slower, heavily. He didn't expect to feel anything again. But then he saw her. A little girl, soaked from the rain, no shoes. Her thin, pale green dress clung to her skin. She was lying on the sidewalk like a forgotten doll. Thomas dropped his bag and rushed over. He knelt down beside her and gently placed his hand on her back. "Sweetheart," he whispered. "Can you hear me?" The girl opened her eyes slightly. Her lips trembled. "Cold," she whispered. Just one word. That was all he needed. He removed his coat and wrapped it around her small frame, then gently lifted her into his arms. She didn't resist. She didn't cry. She just let herself be carried. People stared as he walked past, but no one said a word. It was as if the world had already given up on her. Thomas hadn't. Back in his small apartment, photos still hung on the walls, his wife in her wedding dress, their daughter blowing out birthday candles. The home smelled of books, tea, and time. He hadn't had a visitor in months, but now he laid the girl gently on the old couch, turned on the heater, and went to the kitchen. A bowl of soup, a warm blanket, and the softest towel he could find. When she had calmed a little, he sat beside her and asked, "What's your name?" She looked up with wide, tired eyes. "Naomi," she said softly. "Do you know where your parents are?" She shook her head. She didn't say anything else. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He sat on his armchair, watching over her like a guard standing in the rain. Who had left her there? Why had no one helped? The next morning, he did what he thought was right. He called child services. A woman named Leah, a social worker, came to visit. She was kind and professional, but her face fell when she looked at Naomi's records, or rather, the lack of them. No ID, no missing person report, no school enrollment, nothing, Leah said. She might have been abandoned, maybe undocumented. "What happens now?" Thomas asked. "Well," Leah said, "foster homes are overcrowded. But if you're willing, we could try for a fast-track guardianship." He didn't even pause. "I'll take care of her." From that moment, Naomi stayed. She didn't talk much at first. She didn't smile. She flinched at loud sounds. But she followed Thomas everywhere quietly, like a shadow learning how to become a person again. One evening, Thomas found her in the living room. She stood next to an old upright piano, dusty and untouched since his wife passed away. "Do you like it?" he asked. Naomi nodded. "Go ahead," he said gently. She looked at him as if asking permission one more time, then touched a key. A soft, awkward note rang out. She flinched, then tried again. From that day on, every afternoon was filled with small melodies and gentle plunks of progress. She never asked for help. She just played. Then, one Sunday morning, something happened. Thomas was in the kitchen flipping pancakes when he heard of a song. Not random keys, not simple practice. A song. He walked into the room, and his heart caught in his throat. Naomi was sitting upright, her tiny fingers moving with grace. She was playing Amazing Grace. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't just playing, she was remembering something. When she finished, she turned to him and said, "I heard it in church once. I just wanted to try." Thomas swallowed back tears. "You didn't just try," he said. "You did it." And that's when it happened. The first real smile, small, quiet, but true. From then on, Naomi started to bloom. She drew little pictures and left them on the fridge. She started humming while brushing her teeth. She even talked a little more about colors she liked, animals. She missed memories that felt like dreams. Thomas wasn't just her guardian anymore. He was becoming her father. One Sunday, the pastor at their local church heard Naomi play and asked if she'd be willing to perform during service. She nodded, and when she played, people cried. Even the pastor wiped his eyes and said, "She plays like someone who's lived 1,000 years." For the first time in a long time, Thomas felt something else too. Hope, but the past never forgets. And in the quiet corners of Naomi's eyes, something still waited, something unsaid, something unfinished. This was only the beginning. 2 weeks had passed since Naomi's performance at church, and life had settled into a soft rhythm. Every morning, Thomas would pack her lunch and walk her to school. Every evening, Naomi would return home with new drawings, new words, and a brighter face. But one day, everything changed again. It started like any normal Wednesday. Naomi was walking home from school. She insisted on doing it alone that day. Thomas hesitated, but she smiled and said, "I want to be brave." So he agreed. The school wasn't far, and she knew the way. But halfway home, the sky turned dark. Thunder growled, and then rain, fast, heavy rain. Naomi ran. She didn't like rain. Not since that day by the lamppost. As she turned into a quiet street, a tall man with a black umbrella stepped into her path. She froze. He was wearing a long dark coat, and his boots were muddy. He didn't smile. He didn't say hello. He just stared at her. Naomi took a step back. Then he said something that made her stomach twist. "Your name's not Naomi." She blinked. "What?" He tilted his head. His eyes were sharp like glass. "You're not supposed to be here," he whispered. "I've been looking for you." Naomi dropped her backpack and turned around. She ran. She didn't stop until she reached home, her heart pounding like a drum. She burst through the door, soaking wet and breathless. Thomas rushed over. "Naomi, what happened?" She collapsed into his arms and cried. "There was a man. He said I'm not Naomi. He said he's been looking for me." Thomas held her close. "You're safe now. No one will take you away." But later that night, after Naomi had gone to bed, Thomas couldn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen, staring at her damp backpack. Something was wrong. The next day, he called Leah, the social worker. "There was a man," he explained. "Naomi said he recognized her. He said she's not who she thinks she is." Leah came over the same day with a file. She looked through the documents again. "Still nothing official," she murmured. "No birth certificate, no missing child alert. Just the name she gave you, Naomi." "Could that not be her real name?" Thomas asked. Leah nodded slowly. "It happens sometimes. When children go through trauma, they forget, or choose to forget." Thomas felt a chill. "So what do we do?" Leah looked at him gently. "You keep loving her. You keep protecting her. And if this man shows up again, you call the police." Thomas agreed. But that night, while tucking Naomi into bed, he noticed something. She was holding a little red ribbon in her hand. He had never seen it before. "Where did you get that?" he asked softly. Naomi stared at the ribbon for a moment. Then she whispered, "I used to wear it before the rain." "Before the rain?" Naomi's hands began to tremble. "I think I had a brother. He gave it to me before we ran." Thomas leaned in, heart thudding. "You had a brother?" Naomi nodded. "But something bad happened. I don't remember what." And just like that, another piece of the puzzle slipped into place. The next day, Thomas made a decision. He drove to the city police station with Leah. They showed Naomi's picture on, talked to missing child units, even searched through old reports. One officer paused. He pulled out a thin file from a drawer. "This one was from almost a year ago," he said. "Girl about her age went missing after a house fire in Eastwood." They read the details. A child named Emily Rose Matthews, age 7, vanished the night her family's house burned down. Parents presumed dead. Only one sibling unaccounted for, a brother named Eli Matthews, age 10. Thomas felt his breath catch. Could it be They showed the photo to Naomi. She stared at it silently. Then her lips quivered. "That's me," she whispered. "That's my brother." Everything changed in that moment. Naomi wasn't Naomi. Her real name was Emily Rose. Thomas called her that gently that night, just once, Emily. She turned slowly, then smiled. "I like Naomi better," she said softly. Thomas chuckled. "Then Naomi it is." But now they had more questions. If her parents were gone, where was her brother? Why had she been alone by the lamppost? And who was the man with the umbrella? 1 week later, Thomas got his answer. There was a knock at the door. He opened it and found a boy standing there, soaked in rain, bruised, tired, and holding a crumpled photo in his hand. "Is this where she lives?" he asked. Thomas took the photo. It was a picture of a little girl in a red ribbon. "Naomi, I'm her brother," the boy said. "My name is Eli." Eli sat quietly on the old couch, his hands wrapped around a mug of warm cocoa. Thomas sat across from him, watching, studying. Naomi was asleep upstairs. Eli hadn't stopped shaking since he arrived. "I looked for her for so long," he finally said. "I didn't know if she was alive. I didn't know where to go." Thomas nodded. "You did the right thing coming here." Eli looked up, his face pale. "Who are you?" Thomas smiled softly. "A friend. Someone who found her. Someone who loves her." Eli stared at the mug, then whispered, "They told me she was dead." "Who did?" He didn't answer. The silence grew thick. Finally, Eli spoke again. "After the fire, I woke up in the woods. I couldn't find anyone. I waited, but no one came. Then, a man found me. He said he'd help, said he knew my parents." Thomas leaned forward. "Man?" Eli nodded. "He had an umbrella." Thomas froze. A chill ran through him. "He kept me in a big house with no windows. There were other kids, but none of us could leave." Thomas felt sick. "Did he hurt you?" Eli shook his head. "No, but he made us forget." Thomas frowned. "Forget?" Ellie's hands gripped the mug tighter. "He gave us pills, showed us videos, told us our names weren't real, that our past wasn't real. But I remembered the ribbon, Naomi's ribbon. That's how I held on." Thomas's heart was racing. "And how did you find her?" "She came in my dream," Eli said softly. "She was singing the same song Mom used to sing." Thomas swallowed hard. "She sang it in church. Maybe someone filmed it." Eli looked up. "I saw the video someone showed me on a phone. I ran away that night." Thomas placed a hand over his. "You're safe now, I promise." But deep down, Thomas knew this wasn't over. That night, he let Eli sleep in his guest room. He watched both children breathe peacefully, finally under one roof. He should have slept, but something kept gnawing at him. That man, that umbrella, that house. In the morning, he went to the police again. They filed a full report. Child abduction, illegal confinement, possible trafficking. But there were no fingerprints, no address, no name. "Do you have anything else?" the officer asked. Eli pulled something from his pocket, a silver key. He always wore it around his neck. "One night, I stole it while he slept." The officer examined it. "This could be useful, but we'll need time." Thomas took the kids home. He tried to make things normal again. Laughter, pancakes, board games, warm beds. But Naomi, no. Emily began having nightmares again. She'd wake up crying, "Don't take my brother." And Eli began pacing at night, peeking out the windows, flinching at every sound. Then one Sunday afternoon, everything changed again. Thomas took the kids to a small bookstore near the edge of town. They browsed comics and children's books. Naomi picked one about stars. Eli picked one about warriors. Thomas paid for the books. As they stepped outside, Naomi froze. He was across the street, standing beneath a black umbrella. Same coat, same boots. He didn't cross the street. He just watched. Thomas followed his gaze. The man wasn't looking at him. He was looking at Eli. Thomas grabbed both kids' hands. "Get in the car, now." They rushed back to the vehicle. He locked the doors, drove fast, but the men never moved. That night, Naomi cried in her sleep. Eli sat up with a flashlight and refused to close his eyes. Thomas knew what he had to do. The next day, he drove them out of town to an old cabin his friend owned in the mountains. No signal. No internet. Just safety. They stayed there for a week. No visitors, no umbrellas, no shadows. The children laughed again. They ran through the trees. They chased butterflies. One evening, while roasting marshmallows, Eli turned to Thomas. "Do you think he'll come here?" Thomas stared at the flames. "No, and if he does he won't touch you." Eli nodded. Naomi crawled into Thomas's lap. "Can we stay here forever?" she asked. Thomas smiled. "For as long as you want." But back in town, the man with the umbrella wasn't finished. He walked into the bookstore, picked up the book Eli had touched, then whispered to the cashier, "I'll find them." The wind howled through the trees like a voice trying to warn them. The small cabin where Thomas, Emily, and Eli hid stood deep in the forest, away from people, from cameras, from memories, or so they thought. Thomas had triple-checked every window, every lock. The kids were asleep, curled up on the sofa, with a fire glowing gently beside them. Thomas sat in the rocking chair, holding a photo of his late wife, whispering, "Help me protect them, please." But outside, far from the warm light, the man with the umbrella was walking, slowly, calmly, like he had all the time in the world. The next morning, Thomas took the children on a short walk through the trees. They picked wildflowers and skipped stones by a quiet stream. For a moment, life felt normal again. But Eli suddenly stopped walking. His shoulders stiffened. "Eli?" Thomas asked. Eli pointed to a tree nearby. Scratched deep into the bark were 3 letters, Eli Thomas's. Heart sank. "Did you do that before?" he asked. Eli shook his head. "No, that wasn't me." Emily's hand trembled as she reached for Thomas. "He's close," she whispered. That night, the children stayed in one room while Thomas stood guard in the hallway with an old hunting rifle he found in the cabin. Midnight came, then 1, then 2. Suddenly, a creak. Thomas held his breath. Footsteps on the porch. Then a knock. Soft, polite. Knock, knock, knock. "Thomas," came a voice from the other side. "Come, cold. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Thomas stayed silent. "I raised him," the voice said. "Trained him. He's more mine than yours." Thomas whispered, "Not anymore." There was a long pause. Then the man chuckled, "Fine. Let's see how far you get when the snow comes." And then, silence. The next day, Thomas made a decision. "We can't hide forever," he said. "We need help, real help." They packed what they could and drove down the mountain road toward the nearest town. But halfway through the forest, the road was blocked. Tree branches had been deliberately dragged across the way. Thomas got out to clear them. But as he moved the last branch, he noticed something chilling, a red ribbon tied to it. Emily's ribbon. His blood ran cold. At the police station in the small town of Silver Pines, Thomas told everything about the fire, the girl, the boy, the man, the knocks at night, the ribbon. The officer listened carefully. His name was Deputy Ron. "Sir," he said slowly, "we've had a few cases like this recently. Kids disappearing, coming back, changed. Most of them don't talk. You're the first person bringing real detail." Thomas nodded. "We need protection and answers." Emily and Eli were placed in a safe house under police watch. Thomas stayed with them one afternoon. While Emily played a soft tune on a borrowed keyboard, Eli sat beside her and said quietly, "I remember more now." Thomas looked up. "What do you remember?" Eli frowned, as if it hurt to think. There was a place, underground. No windows, just a light that never turned off. The man would bring in people. Ask us to play music. He said we had special tones. Something about vibrations that healed. Thomas froze. "He made you play piano?" Eli nodded. "He said the world needed our sound, but if we cried, he would turn off the food or lock someone away." Emily's fingers stopped on the keys. She was shaking. I remember now, there were more children. One of them, she had white hair. She used to sing when it was dark. Eli gasped. Yes, her name was Lainey. Thomas swallowed hard. Where is she now? Eli looked down. She didn't make it. That night, Deputy Ron showed up again. Breathless. You need to come with me. They followed him into a secure room at the station. On the wall were dozens of photos. All missing kids, he said. All under age 10. All had some musical ability, violinists, pianists, singers. They vanished without a trace. Emily pointed to one photo. That's Lainey, Eli whispered. She sang like an angel. Deputy Ron nodded grimly. I think the man you're running from is part of something bigger than we imagined. Thomas stared at the board. Then we stop running, we find him. The next morning, Thomas returned to the cabin with police. The kids stayed behind. The place was quiet inside. Nothing had changed except one thing. On the old piano bench where Emily used to sit, there was a folded piece of paper. Thomas picked it up. Written in neat handwriting, word just for words. Play our final note. Thomas stared, then gasped. He turned to Deputy Ron. The song Emily wrote, Sidewalk to Sky. There was a note at the end that didn't fit. She said she didn't know why she'd played it. It just felt right. Back at the safe house, Thomas asked Emily to play the song again. She hesitated, then placed her hands on the keys. She played it beautifully but paused before the last note. I don't want to hear it again, she whispered. Thomas kneeled beside her. Maybe it means something. Emily nodded. She played the final note, a haunting high. As the sound rang out, Eli suddenly sat up straight. That sound? It opened something. What do you mean? Thomas asked. In the place where we were kept, that sound made the walls vibrate. Deputy Ron's eyes lit up. Sound frequency. If we can find that place. The next day, using sound mapping technology from the sheriff's department, they began searching old abandoned areas where acoustic experiments had taken place, places near train tunnels, under cities' old mines. After hours of scanning, they found something. Beneath a forgotten railway station, miles outside the city, was a chamber sealed off, no public access. They went in, and what they saw was horrifying. Dozens of tiny rooms, broken instruments, recording devices, chains. And in the center of it all, a locked steel box. Inside the box was a small music box, still working when wound up. It played the melody from Sidewalk to Sky. It wasn't Emily's song. It was the song she remembered from when she was 6, the one her mother used to hum. Tears streamed down her face. They returned to the surface with everything. The station was shut down. Investigations began. The man was gone again. No trace, no name, no history. Like a ghost. But they had the truth now. And Emily, she wasn't afraid anymore. She went back to performing. She told her story to the world, not just the sidewalk one, but the underground one. The one with Lee. The one with Eli. The one with the final note. 2 years later, the concert hall was full. Cameras clicked. People whispered. Journalists from across the world came to see her. Emily Harmon, the little girl who escaped a dark underground world and brought her voice back to the light. Beside her on stage sat her brother, Eli, now taller, smiling shyly, his fingers resting on the violin he had once been too afraid to touch. And in the front row, Thomas, wearing a black suit, his eyes filled with quiet pride. A single tear rolled down his cheek as he looked at them. They had come so far. But before the show began, Emily stepped up to the microphone. Tonight, I will perform a piece that many of you know, she said, her voice soft but strong. It's called Sidewalk to Sky, but this time I'll be playing it all the way through, including the last note. I once feared. The room was silent. She took a breath, sat down, placed her fingers on the keys. And then she played. Every note told their story of being lost, of being found, of running through forests and hiding in cabins, of fear, of courage, of Lainey. And then came the final note. She held it for longer than usual, letting it ring letting the pain and beauty settle in the hearts of everyone listening. When the last echo faded, there was silence. Famous standing ovation, tears, claps, cheers, but Emily didn't move right away. She sat still, her eyes shut, because she heard something. No one else did. Backstage later that night, Thomas hugged both children tightly. "You were incredible," he said. "You've turned pain into something beautiful." Emily looked up. "I heard something when I played the final note." "What did you hear?" Eli asked. Emily blinked slowly, a voice. "I don't know who it was, but it said, 'It's finished now.'" Thomas didn't say a word, but deep down he believed her. That night in their hotel, Emily woke up from a dream. She had seen the underground chamber again, only this time it was filled with light. Leanie was there, smiling, wearing white. And then, the man in the coat and umbrella walked in. But something had changed. He looked tired, his eyes empty. He whispered. The music stopped. Emily looked him in the eye. "Because the children are free now." Then he turned and faded like mist in the morning. The next morning, Thomas received a phone call from Deputy Ron, now promoted to sheriff. "You won't believe this," Ron said. "They caught him last night." Thomas stood still. "The man, yes, real? Name's Julian Meeks. He used to work in experimental sound therapy. He believed certain music could heal the broken world. He started abducting musically gifted children to force the experiment." Thomas gripped the phone tighter. "He talking?" Ron sighed. "No, but he had a room full of recordings and journals, all about the final note, and one strange phrase that kept coming up." "What phrase?" Ron said slowly. "Only pure sound opens the gate between here and the other." Thomas was quiet. "What gate?" Ron replied. "We're still trying to figure that out." But it seems like he wasn't just chasing music. He was chasing something else, something darker. Weeks later, Emily and Eli were invited to speak at an international peace and art summit in Vienna. They were given medals of courage, and people from around the world sent letters thanking them for giving voice to children who had been silenced. One of those letters stood out. It came in a plain envelope. Inside was a note written in childlike handwriting. "Dear Emily, I heard your song. My name is Leanie. I'm free now. Thank you." Emily stared at it. Tears filled her eyes. Thomas didn't ask how the letter got there. Because some things aren't meant to be explained. 3 years later, Emily started a foundation called Leanie's Light to help children around the world who had gone through trauma or silence. Eli became a composer and worked with schools to teach music as healing. And Thomas, he wrote a book titled Her Final Song, which became a bestseller. In it, he shared everything from the day he saw a strange little girl in a hospital bed to the night she played a note that changed the world. At the final page, he wrote, "This isn't just Emily's story. It's not just Ellie's. It's a story for anyone who ever felt voiceless and found the courage to sing again." An old piano set in a children's hospital lobby. On top of it was a framed sign. "You are safe here. You are heard. You are music." Emily walked in quietly one day without press, without cameras. A little girl was playing a soft tune, one finger at a time. She stopped when she saw Emily. Emily smiled gently and asked, "Do you want to play together?" The little girl nodded. And just like that, no darkness, no fear, they played, sidewalk to sky. But this time, the song belonged to everyone.